Welcome back to Poland's Armored Birth, forging a tank from scraps. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by military history expert Eloise. Eloise, post-World War I Poland faced incredible odds, a weak industrial base, and a lack of design experience. Yet they embarked on this ambitious quest for modern tanks. What was the driving force behind this?
It's a truly compelling chapter in military history, Noah. After the Polish-Soviet War, there was a stark realization that maneuver warfare was absolutely essential. They couldn't rely on outdated French designs, but building an indigenous armored force from virtually nothing was a monumental challenge.
So, they had the strategic vision, but the practicalities must have been daunting. I imagine there were significant struggles, perhaps even failed prototypes, before they found a viable path forward?
Precisely. They certainly tried to develop their own designs, but the learning curve was steep, and the industrial capacity just wasn't there for rapid success. This led to a crucial strategic pivot, acquiring foreign licenses, which ultimately laid the foundation for their own capable armored force.
That's a fascinating turning point. Given their ambition, what made the Vickers MKE the tank of choice for Poland to license, especially when they were aiming for something more modern?
Well, honestly, the options for commercially available tank designs internationally were quite limited at that time. The Vickers MKE, despite its own limitations, presented the most viable path forward. It was a strategic decision to acquire that license, a pivotal move that truly set the stage for the 7TP.
So the Vickers MKE became the blueprint, but the 7TP wasn't just a direct copy, was it? How did Poland begin to transform this foreign design into something uniquely their own?
Absolutely not a direct copy. The Vickers MKE was often referred to as the 6-ton tank in Polish documents, but as they started modifying it, its actual weight increased. This led to it being called the 7-ton or 7T, and eventually the designation 7TP was coined, standing for 7-tonowy or 7-ton Polish.
That's a clear indication of their intent to make it their own. Can you walk us through the initial stages of this indigenous development? When did the first prototype start to emerge?
The journey began quite quickly. Initial prototypes were ordered on January 19, 1933, and by June 24 of that same year, the assembly drawings were already complete. The first prototype, affectionately nicknamed Smoke or Dragon, was finished in August 1934.
A dragon tank. That's quite a name. What did these early tests reveal about its capabilities, especially compared to the original Vickers design?
The Smock prototype actually demonstrated superior off-road capabilities compared to the Vickers tanks, which was a significant achievement. Intensive testing and modifications followed, and while it was deemed suitable for mass production, they knew further refinements were necessary.
So they had a promising start. Was there a second prototype, and how did that feed into the eventual production models?
Indeed, the second prototype, named Slan or Elephant, was completed in 1935. Interestingly, it still incorporated some British parts from Vickers. Both of these early prototypes were two-turreted and constructed from mild steel, with the exception of the Vickers turrets themselves.
And these two turreted designs, were they what went into the first production series?
Yes, they were. The first series of 22 tanks, ordered on March 18, 1935, were indeed two-turreted. They were equipped with machine gun turrets directly sourced from Vickers E-tanks, marking the initial step towards building their armored force.
We've touched on the general need for new tanks, but what specifically made their existing fleet, like the French Renault FT, so inadequate for the challenges Poland faced in the 1920s?
That's a great question, Noah. The Renault FT, while a pioneering design from World War I, was quite limited. Its top speed was incredibly low, making it unsuitable for the maneuver warfare Poland envisioned after the Polish-Soviet War.
So it was slow. Was its armament also a significant drawback?
Absolutely. Its armament, typically a 37-millimeter gun or a machine gun, was becoming increasingly ineffective against newer armored threats emerging in the 1920s. They needed something faster and with more punch.
Beyond the tanks themselves, you mentioned Poland's weak industrial base. Can you paint a clearer picture of just how challenging it was to even think about building tanks domestically?
It was a monumental hurdle, honestly. Poland had been partitioned for over a century, which meant there was virtually no indigenous engineering or automotive industry to speak of. They were starting from scratch, without the foundational infrastructure or skilled labor.
That's a stark reality. So not only did they lack the factories, but also the expertise?
Precisely, the lack of local engineering and automotive industries meant a severe shortage of experienced designers and technicians. This made any attempt at independent design incredibly difficult.
And were there other factors, perhaps economic, that compounded these industrial challenges?
Yes, definitely. Economic constraints were a constant issue, and the government's efforts to monopolize automotive production further hindered any rapid development. It was a tough environment for any ambitious industrial project.
Given these immense challenges, I recall you mentioning an initial unsuccessful attempt at designing their own tank before they turned to foreign licenses. Could you tell us more about that specific project and why it didn't pan out?
Certainly. Before they acquired the Vickers license, Poland did try to design a tank called the WB-10 prototype. Unfortunately, it was unsuccessful, largely due to that very lack of experience we just discussed.
So the WB-10 was a direct casualty of their inexperience in tank design?
That's right. They simply didn't have the accumulated knowledge or the specialized engineering teams to translate their ambition into a functional, reliable design at that stage. It was a valuable, albeit costly, learning experience.
It really underscores the scale of the challenge they faced. It sounds like the decision to acquire a foreign license wasn't just a preference, but a strategic necessity born out of these initial failures and limitations.
Exactly. It was a pragmatic decision. Recognizing their own industrial and experiential shortcomings, acquiring a proven foreign design and production license became the most viable path to quickly establish a modern armored force.
And that, of course, led them to the Vickers Marquis, which we discussed earlier. It's fascinating how these early struggles and setbacks ultimately shaped their entire approach to tank development.
Indeed, the journey of the 7TP really began with overcoming these fundamental problems. The limitations of the Renault FT, the weak industrial base, and the failure of the WB-10 all pointed towards the need for a different strategy.
It's a testament to their determination, really, to face such daunting obstacles and still push forward with such an ambitious goal.
Absolutely. They understood the strategic importance of armored warfare, and despite all the challenges, they were committed to building a capable indigenous force.